Nintendo is still trying to convince us that people who want to buy their games physically are okay with some of the games being empty cartridges in a plastic case, but Amazon just revealed something really interesting. We are 3 months into the launch of the Switch 2, and while Nintendo is pushing game key cards as if they're the future of physical media, the sales charts reveal an entirely different story. Amazon just exposed the truth, and it is hilariously bad. At this point, Nintendo's still standing by game key cards feels almost as out of touch as when Blizzard announced Diablo was coming to mobile and then stood on the stage and said, "What's the matter? Don't you guys have phones?"
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Like, bro, you guys are completely misunderstanding your core customer base. But in all seriousness, this could actually be bad for Nintendo because they are doubling down on a product that gamers obviously don't want. Game key cards are like a glorified code in the box, and while yes, they are technically better than that, the sales numbers that are coming out are so embarrassing that it's almost as if Nintendo is just ignoring reality to keep game key cards alive. And that is the part that makes no sense. So what exactly is going on here? Why is Nintendo sticking with game key cards when obviously it's failing? Is this just stubbornness, or do we not have enough data yet? Are they eventually going to pull the plug on game key cards? Today we'll dive a little bit deeper to figure that out, but first, what's going on, guys? By the way, if you guys couldn't tell from my last video, I actually moved to a new apartment, and Tiger said you have to like the video. She said you have to, you have no choice. Isn't that right? Gosh, you're so cute. This first came to my attention over on Twitter a couple of days ago. Nintendo tweeted, and just like that, the top 10 best-selling Switch 2 games on Amazon are all real physical releases, no game key cards. Yuka Replayly broke into the number 2 spot. Thanks for keeping it real. Now, this was posted on August 28th, but this is no longer the case. It is no longer the case that the top 10 best-selling Switch 2 games on Amazon are physical releases, but it's really close. If we take a look at the updated data here, this is as of September 3rd at 2 p.m. we can see that the best sellers for Nintendo Switch 2 games are of course Donkey Kong Bonanza, Kirby, and the Forgotten Land, which is actually kind of insane. We'll talk about that in a minute. Kirby Air Riders, this is obviously a pre-order. Yuka Replayly is a pre-order as well. Then we have Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, this is the premium edition. Then we have Cyberpunk 2077, of course. We have Super Mario Party Jamboree, Mario Kart World, Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, the regular edition. Then we have Madden NFL 26 being the first game key card in the top 10. So the number 10 spot is a game key card. Number 11 spot we have Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and then number 12 would technically be Sonic Shadow Generations, which is another game key card. So what exactly can we learn from this information? Well, of course, anybody who looks at this for 2 seconds can realize that of the top 11 best-selling games, 10 of them are full games on the cartridge. Does that tell the full story though? Maybe it might tell the full story, but let's take a closer look here. Okay, first of all, we've got a lot of first party titles. Okay, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Kirby Forgotten Land, Air Riders, Mario Party Jamboree, Mario Kart World, and Tears of the Kingdom. So 6 of the top 11 best-selling games on the Switch 2 are first party titles. So then the question becomes, did people buy those games because they're game on the cartridge, or did they buy them because they're first party titles? And I think the answer is pretty obvious. They bought them because they're first party titles. Like, what are we talking about, right? How do we know that that's the reason? Well, the best selling Switch 2 console is the one bundled with Mario Kart World. So we know that the average consumer doesn't care that their copy of Mario Kart World is digital. They don't actually physically have something in their hands for Mario Kart World. Now, lots of people did actually end up buying it physically, but for a majority of Switch 2 owners, they're totally fine with Mario Kart World being a digital version, which means people are generally okay with their games being digital, even if they're first party titles. So I think realistically, a majority of these games are the best sellers because they're Nintendo games. They're first party games. That's clearly the case. Even if these were code in the box, I still think that these games would find themselves in the top 11 best selling games for the console so far. But the other other games on the list tell a totally different story, and that is that when it comes to third-party releases, gamers are more likely to buy the actual physical edition if the game is actually in the box. Can you believe that? Is that shocking to anybody? I don't think that's really that shocking, right? I know for me personally, I wanted to buy Sonic Shadow Generations, so I did. I bought it on the PS5 because, I mean, why would I not? The game is here. The game is in my hands. It's on the disc here. And also, this was the day one edition, which has Robotnik's journal here. And so I can only speak for myself, but as somebody who has a bunch of physical games here, when I'm presented with the choice of buying the third-party game on PS5 versus Switch 2, I'm gonna buy the one where the game is physically in my hands. So I don't think it's that unreasonable that other gamers might be doing the same thing that I'm doing. They're just gonna say, okay, if I'm gonna buy a third-party game, if I have another console that I can play it on and the game is fully there, I'm just gonna buy it there. Now, before we talk about whether or not Nintendo is gonna pull the plug on game key cards over the next couple of months, I quickly want to touch on the fact that Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition with Star-Crossed World, is the second best-selling game for the Switch 2 on Amazon, which is kind of insane. Now, I know the lineup isn't that crazy, and clearly Mario Kart World was bundled, so that's why that's not higher, but like, this is a glorified port of a Switch 1 game, and of course it's got some extra content here, but like, it's $80. This isn't it, bro. It's an $80 game for the Switch 2, and it's not even a Switch 2 game. It's a Switch 2 edition. This is like, why are people paying $80 for this? On top of that, we have Mario Party Jamboree, also $80, coming in at number 7. An $80 Switch 1 game. Why are people buying this? Hello? Now, of course, Mario Party Jamboree being number 7, I mean, the game didn't even sell as well as Cyberpunk, and Cyberpunk didn't sell that well either, right? I mean, we look at the Famitsu sales data for Super Mario Party Jamboree, and it's not that impressive, right? Like, just because it's in 7th place doesn't mean it's like flying off the shelves. Like, it's really not selling that well. But like, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is selling pretty well, which is kind of insane. We should have the data for that maybe next week, but like, I don't know, the reason I'm pointing this out is because everyone said that no one would buy the $80 games, and here we see multiple $80 games in the top 10. So it's like, and that includes Mario Kart World, by the way, right? Like, yeah, I don't know, we have an $80 Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, right? Like, people kept telling me $80 games are going to be the death of the console, and some of the best selling games are the $80 games, so I don't know. But anyway, let's get back on topic and talk about, are we going to see Nintendo pull the plug on game key cards? Well, we know, and if you've been following the channel for the last couple of weeks, we've been reporting on this, okay? So if you don't want to miss these news reports as they come out, subscribe down below. But one of the things you may have missed is that the Switch 2 cards may be getting more storage options, reducing the need for game key cards. Micronix, a Taiwanese firm that apparently handles Nintendo's cartridge needs, reportedly stated that more storage options are on the way. This was just reported about a month ago. The initial report says the storage solutions company recently shared that its ROM products are, quote, primarily used in Nintendo Switch game cartridges, end quote, and that in the future it will use in-house MLC and NAND and outsourced 3D NAND components to provide, quote, varying capacity requirements, end quote, for these cards. Given that different storage capacities already exist for the Nintendo Switch cards, it could be inferred that the aforementioned statement is talking about something similar becoming available for Switch 2 cards going ahead. So basically what this report is saying is that right now the only available Switch 2 game card option is 64 gigabytes, right? And that's why we see so many game key cards, because first of all, it's expensive to buy an actual Switch 2 cartridge from Nintendo for these third-party companies, but also if the game is significantly smaller than 64 gigabytes, then it might not be worth spending that money. And likewise, if the game is more than 64 gigabytes, well, these third-party companies have no choice. They have to use a game key card because there's no other option. That if they want a physical copy on the shelf, it has to be a game key card. So it's nice to see that this could be changing according to Micronix, because again, they already make multiple sizes of Switch cards, and so the same company saying they're working on more storage sizes sizes for Nintendo, it's like, okay, well, that can only mean one thing, and it must be that there's more storage sizes coming for the Switch too. Now they could be releasing larger sizes, right? So that way the Call of Duties can put themselves on a game card and actually have the full game there, but it's still going to require a 100 GB download if that ever does happen, right? So I don't know, but the point is, it seems like between that and Nintendo releasing surveys asking customers and players if they like game key cards, it seems like Nintendo is trying to maybe gear up for a switch, no pun intended, to full games on the cartridge. At least that's what I am hoping. I am optimistic that that is going to happen, but hey, who knows? But here's another thing we have to consider. We've all been talking about game key cards versus physical cards, but nobody's talking about physical cards versus digital downloads. And I think that is really what we need to be focusing on, because I think it's reasonable to assume that if a consumer is willing to buy a game digitally, like straight up download, then they also simultaneously wouldn't be that bothered by buying a game key card, right? I mean, if the issue is ownership, well, at least a game key card, you can sell it to GameStop or sell it on eBay, right? Like whoever has the key card actually gets the license to play the game. And so effectively you can still sell it, give it to a friend, whatever the case might be, right? So I mean, there's advantages to game key card over digital, not to say it's better. Of course, digital typically has faster load times and the convenience of not having to leave your home, right? So like, I'm not here to say that game key cards are just objectively better, but there are advantages, right? And so one of the things that we can assume is that if a consumer is okay with digital only, I should say, then they're not really worried about physically owning the game, right? They don't really care about like actual ownership of the copy in their hands. They downloaded it, so therefore they'd be okay with a game key card. Maybe it's not their preference, but they'd be fine with it, right? Like they wouldn't not buy it in the same way that a physical game collector would not buy a game key card, right? Like I said, I have physical games. I will not buy game key cards because they are not physical games, right? I don't think a digital gamer is really going to have that same passion, and they're not really going to put their money where their mouth is in the same way. I mean, let's be real. We can all, you understand what I'm talking about, right? We can all come to this logical conclusion. If they're willing to download it, then of course they're willing to buy a download code on a cartridge, right? Okay, so that is, we can all agree that that is the case. Now there's some fringe cases, don't even comment. I know, okay? There's, just because that's not you doesn't mean it's not true, okay? But let's talk about that, okay? Because in Nintendo's financial results with the year ended March of 2025, so this is before the Switch 2 came out, okay? What we can understand here is that if we come down to Nintendo's gross profit, we can see that a proportion of digital sales accounted for 73.5% of their profit. Now there's obviously an asterisk here. This means that this is a proportion of sales to total dedicated video game platform software sales. So what that means is that 53.5% of Nintendo's profit from software sales came from digital sales. So more than half of their profit came from digital sales, which means that a significant portion of consumers are buying their games digitally on the Switch, right? I mean, that's just, you can't get this number without a lot of people buying their game on digital, right? Now if we scroll down to the page that covers digital sales specifically, we can see the breakdown here between things like Nintendo Online and DLC versus full game downloads. What we can see is that a majority of their digital sales were actually things like DLC, but still a significant amount of that is full game downloads. So what we know for sure is that many Nintendo gamers have no problem with downloading their games digitally, which means that they wouldn't really have a problem with games being on game key cards. And these are the people that a lot of us forget about in these YouTube videos, right? You know, I can make a video talking about how much I hate game key cards, and everyone in the comments can agree with that, and they can all say, yeah, we all hate game key cards, and then we're still sitting here wondering like, okay, well, why is Nintendo doing this, right? Well, the answer is all those consumers. What are you doing, Tiger? The answer is all those consumers who are at work right now. They're not watching this YouTube video. They don't care about Nintendo sales. They've got stuff to do, right? They have kids, they're going to school. They have lives outside of obsessing over Nintendo sales data, right? Your average everyday Joe, a lot of them don't care if the game is digital, game key card, whatever. They're just going to buy whatever's cheapest, whatever's most convenient, whatever's in front of them. It doesn't really matter. They just want to play the game. So could it be the case that the casual Andes are ruining physical media for all of us us. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this. Do you think Nintendo will eventually change course when it comes to game key cards, or do you think their digital sales data in their quarterly reports shows that they can confidently rely on digital sales and game key cards to still sell? While you're down there, consider dropping a thumbs up on the video. It really helps the small channel a ton, and subscribe if you're new here. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.